People don't seem to understand how important behavior really is when it comes to attractiveness. Behavior is literally so important, if not more important than physical appearance when it comes to attractiveness. There have been so many instances when I've seen people who are like physically average by societal standards, but are still so magnetic. People are just drawn into them. People are kind of like obsessed with them. And that is because they were able to master their behavior. So when you're able to master your behavior, you enter this version of yourself that is centered around magnetism. Magnetism is when you just have this very compelling presence. Your energy is so captivating and it just leaves people curious about you. And the root of achieving magnetism is a harmonious balance between confidence and authenticity. And today, the focus of my video is to bring you a little bit closer to the first key element of magnetism, which is authenticity. And we're going to learn how to be more authentic and find our more authentic selves through detachment. So imagine being surrounded by judgmental people and you're just trying to stay out of the spotlight. You're just trying to lay low, stay a little bit invisible. And then you get jolted into the spotlight without meaning to, and you just become the center of attention. Everyone is talking about you, gossiping about you, saying like nasty, degrading comments about you. Like, this would be a very humiliating experience for you, right? But what if it doesn't have to be? What if your humiliations and your embarrassments and your cringe moments were instead taken and transformed into your superpowers? So this is how you become hot and unbothered. And here are my video chapters. And as you guys know, I love to use characters and TV examples in order to convey my messages. So today we're going to be talking about Olive from Easy A to better understand this. If you haven't seen the movie, no worries. I am going to be a little bit detailed in my rundown here. So basically, Olive is a teen girl who spent most of her high school life just kind of laying low, trying to stay out of the spotlight, trying to stay a little bit invisible. She had so many amazing qualities. She was really funny, pretty, smart, interesting. She had a lot of interests, but despite her very obvious qualities, she still had pretty low self-esteem in the beginning of the movie and just remained quite reserved. One day she lied to her best friend about losing her V-card, and she doesn't really know why she did this, but she knew that it made her feel a little bit powerful and risky and like just like not really in the shadow of her best friend. So I think that's a huge reason behind why she started this lie. Unfortunately, this lie was being eavesdropped upon by another girl who's like a perfect image of a girl who is filled with internalized misogyny and kind of has this like moral superiority above all, and like basically makes her whole personality the fact that she's Christian and moral and pure and whatever. Because that girl was eavesdropping, she basically slut shamed Olive and spread this rumor around to the whole school. It just spread like wildfire. People were saying all kinds of things about her. They were saying like she had STDs. They were just making up a bunch of like crazy rumors. And Olive walks into school the next day and everyone is just staring at her, gossiping about her, and it just became like this whole thing where she kind of knew that this was all temporary and she kind of just brushed it aside until her own friends started saying like, you're building up a reputation. And instead of her getting humiliated, which is what people wanted her to feel in that moment, she really wanted to retaliate. She was like, oh, okay, you want to like look down on me? You want to have this moral superiority over me? Okay, so then she goes to the store, buys a bunch of scandalous clothes, puts them on, and then she plasters an A on her clothes, which is basically like a book report that the students were reading at the time called The Scarlet Letter. It's basically an old story from the 1850s about a woman who conceived a child with a man that wasn't her husband, and so for her punishment she had to have an A plastered on her clothes that stands for adultery. But Olive, she took that and tried to like use it, I guess, as a symbol of empowering herself against all of the hate and all of the criticism that she was receiving, and basically just a kind of retaliation at like, oh, like you can't control me, you can't like try and make me conform to your standards kind of thing. So anyways, when she adopted this different attitude, she really was a perfect example of somebody who mastered detachment in a situation that would be so humiliating and so like difficult for so many people. She just took that and kind of rolled with it and had a completely different mindset shift. It brings us to mindset shift number 1. I am not my thoughts, I am the observer of my thoughts. So Olive adopted this attitude that I found to be really, really interesting. It's almost like she wasn't fully experiencing the humiliation and embarrassment of it all because she detached herself from the situation, and it's as if she was outside looking in. And she began to act like this was some kind of like social experiment rather than it being her own life and experiences. And it's almost like she developed a whole new identity so that it enabled her to be able to just remain detached and the observer of her thoughts rather than identifying the gossip and the rumors and the degrading words and taking those things and like attaching them to her psyche and to her identity. She kind of created a whole new version of herself in order to remain outside of herself. But even if she truly did care a little inside, she was so committed to kind of sticking to this persona. She was kind of like faking it so that she can uphold this detached feeling, like mentally and also socially. When you are creating mental space between yourself and your experiences and the thoughts and the emotions that you're feeling, this is when you're able to behave a little bit more authentically. Olive separated herself from her thoughts. She didn't allow them to control her, and she remained an observer. She understood all of this was temporary and meaningless. Instead of believing every thought that you have, why don't you just kind of act as if you are someone who is outside looking in? You were just an observer. You were looking inside of somebody else's head and you're listening to their thoughts. And when you kind of have that perspective, you can more easily regulate those thoughts. Like when you have a thought that's just completely irrational, it's much more easier to identify it and not let it attach to you or attach to your identity when you can step outside of yourself and just view it as if you're an observer of activity that's going on in your mind, but not taking every single thought and feeling that you have so seriously, like don't believe everything you feel. Imagine people had just started this big rumor about you and were like, oh my gosh, like, this girl had a botched BBL and you have never had surgery in your life, but people are just spreading this rumor for no reason. They're like, oh my god, look at her, this girl has a botched BBL, you can tell right there, like there's a bump there, there's this, and like they start picking apart your body, they start discussing it, like you kind of just become under their radar, under their spotlight for something that's completely untrue. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna show up to school the next day completely covered, like head to toe in like baggy clothing and like trying to hide yourself? No, you're not gonna do that, because then you're just kind of confirming what they're saying, right? They're making up these like rumors about you, and like guilty people try to cover things up. You're not guilty, you didn't do anything. Like, it doesn't make you guilty either to get surgery, like, but I'm just saying you're not guilty of what they are accusing you of. You're not gonna hide away. It takes observing your thoughts to really understand that and to come to this place where you're kind of thinking more rationally and you're going to react a little bit more rationally and more authentically. Mindset shift number 2, embracing the unknown. Stop labeling your experiences. The idea of Olive's experience happening to you might seem like a catastrophic thing, and like I know that if I were in high school and I was like the high school version of me and something like this happened, I would literally go a little bit crazy just thinking about going to school the next day. I'd have so much anxiety and fear. I would definitely try and hide and trying to kind of like lay low, even if what the rumors were being said about me were untrue. But Olive was just so emotionally detached that it just made her different from most people. And detachment isn't just being able to be the observer of your thoughts, but it is also observing the situation through the skill of perspective taking. It is not always so negative, but you need some patience to really understand the bigger reason behind things happening. Olive didn't really view her experience as totally negative. She didn't care too much about what people were saying, and she just kind of used this experience as a challenge to make herself a little bit more confident and powerful. Being able to overcome the fear of judgment of others had allowed her to express herself in a more confident fashion. Olive's reputation and social status being just squandered with rumors and gossip and all of these things might just be the very thing that challenges her to overcome a fear of judgment, and then perhaps after high school she'd be the only one from that school courageous enough to go put herself out there and try doing things that are a little bit more grand and then making it further than anyone else in her school had made it. Detachment is essentially a huge perspective shift. When something happens to you and you feel like it's a negative thing, just take a step back and be like, what if it is not? What if it's either this or better? What if I'm going to experience something way more fit for me, and this rejection and this negative experience was just me getting closer to that? When I entered university, I tried to make friends with some girls. I went to these activities that were hosted for new students, and I didn't know anybody, but when I got there, it seemed like a lot of people already knew each other. A lot of people were already like talking and in groups. Anyways, I went and I talked to this one girl, kind of introduced myself, really small talk, nothing weird about it. But then later on, I saw her with a group of girls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, here's a great opportunity for me to go make some friends. I go up to this group of girls and I'm like, hi, I'm Zara, nice to meet you, blah blah blah, and I just kind of like start some conversation with them. And all of a sudden, that girl, the one that I initially introduced myself to, let's call her Daphne, her attitude just changed when she was with these girls. Like, she was just totally like cold, right? So I'm like, okay, hi, I'm Zara, nice to meet you. I just kind of wanted to make some girlfriends, you know? And all of the girls, they literally looked at me with a blank face and they did not respond. They just stood there like this, like, and they didn't say anything. And I was like, maybe they didn't hear me. And so then anyways, I was kind of like, oh, like, did you guys like the activities? Like, how are you guys, you know, are you having fun? Blah, blah, blah. And they respond to me like literally like this, like I'm just trying to be friendly, you know, I didn't do anything wrong. So I just didn't talk to them again after that. I kind of just avoided them. I didn't like that interaction. And I did get attention from guys in the class a lot, like at the time. So I think it was kind of like a jealousy thing. I kind of had a couple friends. A couple of those friends had told me that those girls would like basically say that I was like a hoe. I was brand new to the city. Nobody knew me. I had never hooked up with anyone in my life, and I was being called these names. And it was just internalized misogyny and jealousy. Like, that was literally the reason. I had the confidence. I put a lot of effort into my looks, especially in first year. And I knew that I was getting some attention, but with that came a lot of jealousy. The girls that are like that are completely pick-me-shas, and pick-me-shas don't make good friends. So I really couldn't care less about your opinion, and it's clearly stemming from a place of jealousy. You know, if you're a pretty girl, or if you have, you know, beautiful energy or a compelling presence, you know, or you're successful or you're happy, people are going to talk about you. People are going to be jealous of you. But honestly, who cares? Just take it as an indicator that you are a baddie and they wish they were you. And there's no reason to take experiences like that and feel negatively about them, because it is hardly ever personal. Because of that experience, I really feel like it was definitely a little bit of a push for me to learn how to deal with the judgment and other people's hate. And now I have the courage to pursue my 10-year-long YouTube dream. I've been wanting to do this since I was literally 15 years old. And I know what was meant for me. I know I was meant to be on YouTube. You know, ever since I was like a little girl, like, okay, 15 years old is not little girl, but like it is to me because that was 10 years ago now. But ever since I was like, you know, little 15-year-old me, I knew this was what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to do this. And now I have the courage to like not care about other people's judgment, because experiences like that, like random hate like that, I learned not to take it personal. Those little things kind of piled up and added up and got me to a point where I was like, you know what, I actually don't care. I don't care about what you think of me. I don't care about your judgments. I'm gonna go do what my passion is, which is YouTube. And that is actually a very good point that will lead me into mindset shift number 3, which is let them. So I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast, and this idea came up in her podcast, and I was like, you know what? I really like this. Let them is so simple. It is so easy to like remember. It's just like 2 words, right? And it's one of those things where whenever you feel like you need to control someone, or you're kind of like, I need to control this person. I need to control a situation that is out of your control. You just say those 2 words. Let them, okay? They want to gossip about you. They want to judge you. They want to have bad opinions about you. Let them. They want to go do something that you don't agree with, or they want to have certain views that you don't agree with, or that you think that they shouldn't have, or whatever. Let them. It's not up to you to change people or try to change their views or control others. It is up to you to just let things be, let things roll, and work on yourself. Work on the things that you actually can control, which is what's going on inside of here and in here. And it's a lot easier for you to kind of have this mentality, especially when it comes to haters, right? If we're going back to Olive's example, like, people will hate. There's no point in trying to change that or to try to like prove them wrong or, appease them. So just let them hate. People will look at somebody's really hard work, like a really fit body that it just took you years to build it. You worked so hard for this body, and they'll look at you and they'll be like, oh, fake. People will see like a really happy, beautiful couple, and they'll look at them and be like, oh, he's probably cheating, or she's probably cheating, Oh, what do they bring to the table? People love to hate because they see things that are attainable to them. Clearly, this is an attainable thing. Someone was able to do this and achieve this. So instead, you make excuses like, oh, that person's successful and they started in the same position as me. Well, they were just like the 1% lucky. They were just like this. Oh, it's daddy's money. They're going to say that your success was you doing something shady or immoral on the low, because they don't want to come to the terms that it really did take you just a lot of hard work to get there. And they wish that they had the amount of drive and ambition and discipline that it takes to do what you did, even though it's attainable and you can get there. You just have to work for it, right? Think about the people who have no passions in their life. What do they talk about? They gossip all day long because they have too much time on their hands. And I'm talking about like those gossipy aunties. I know a lot of you know what I mean, okay? And I'm talking about those negative coworkers who just talk about each other. Let them do that. Let them waste their time doing that stuff while you focus on you. You focus on bettering your life. That's what life is about. Anyways, at the end of the film, Olive started entering this cycle where she began self-contradiction. She started off retaliating against people trying to get her to conform to societal standards, and the more she retaliated, the more that she started to feel like she was entering this new cycle of people pleasing and appeasing others, right? And she became less authentic. That's why in the middle of her retaliation era, in the middle of the movie, she's still in her growing stage. She hasn't fully entered that like magnetism stage. Like, she had kind of glimpses of it, but she's not fully magnetic because she's not being truly authentic and truly herself. The confidence is radiating, oh absolutely, but she's not being truly authentic. And at the end of the movie is actually when she's at her most magnetic. If this was real life, she's gonna have a very compelling presence now, because that experience helped to shape her into a more confident version of herself. And it ended off with her being more authentic, which was her stepping into her final stage of her hot girl era. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments below what other characters that you resonated with, and it might just be the inspiration for my next video. That's a wrap for today, and I'll see you guys next week.